Hi everyone, welcome to Northwestern. My name's Dina and I'm a third-year physical therapy student from the northwest suburbs of Chicago.
And my name's Emily. I'm also a third-year student and I'm from Delaware. Today we're going to start by showing you our building, 645 North Michigan. Here it is right here. Let's head on in. So while we're inside, we're going to take our masks off for this part of the tour, but while we're outside, we'll keep them on, especially when we're around large crowds of people. Okay, let's go up to 7.
Okay, we're gonna start our tour on the 7th floor.
So we spend a lot of time on this floor. We have classrooms and lounge space, so we're gonna take a minute to show you around.
All right, let's start with the classroom.
So here we have our first classroom. This is 710 and we have a lot of lectures here. You'll spend more time here in your second year, and this is where we do more of the lectures, and we'll move on to the lab space in just a second. Ready? We're gonna come on through here. So here we have one of our first lab rooms. As you can see, it's split up into a smaller space right now for social distancing, but these walls can come down and it can be one big room if we're doing class all together.
What's really nice about Northwestern is we have a large number of faculty practicing in each specialty. So when we break down into lab groups, you know you'll be working with someone who is at the top of their field.
Okay, let's keep going. So as you can see, these are more lab spaces, and this is where you'll have all of your hands-on clinical skill experience.
Yep, and something really nice about the tables in each of these rooms is they are all high-low tables, so you can adjust them to whatever height you want for whatever treatment you're doing.
So right here we have some of the locker rooms.
And now we're entering our student lounge space. So this is set up for eating lunch. You can hang out in the couch space. We have microwaves, toaster ovens, a Keurig,
Lots of fridges.
Yep, and computers with free printing. It's a nice space to hang out in between classes.
This is where we spend a lot of our time throughout the day. We get an hour for lunch every day, so it's really great to have this space just to hang out in with all of our classmates.
All right, so now we'll be moving into our other lab space. Just like the other one, this one can be broken down into multiple small rooms.
So here we have the same idea on this side, more tables. So as you can see, there's tons of space on this floor for all of our class. As long as we have so many tables, we can each have like one faculty to a very small group of students. So it's really nice.
And on some weeknights, we have clinicians that come in from area hospitals, so Northwestern Memorial, Shirley Ryan, to help students practice some of their basic skills and get a different opinion on their skills, which is a huge asset to the program. We also bring in clinicians from Shirley Ryan to teach in the neuro curriculum, from Lurie Children's to teach in the pediatric curriculum, and from area clinics to teach in the orthopedic program.
So as you can see from all of our core faculty, in addition to all of these clinicians that we bring in, there's always someone to help, and it really helps break down that large class size into much smaller groups and get that hands-on experience from a clinician or a faculty member.
So one of the great things about Chicago is there's so much to do outside of school.
So right now, as you can see, we have Marilyn Monroe right behind us. There's a really cool Andy Warhol exhibit at the Art Museum. So something fun. So there's one other spot on this floor we want to show you. So as you can see, we're walking through this big lab space right now. And up on the top, there's TVs. That TV space is broadcasted through this whole room and actually through the other lab space we saw earlier as well.
So if you come to the front of the room, you can see that we have a camera set up. So if there's a professor up here doing a demo, they'll show it on the camera and then they can broadcast whatever they're doing to all of the lab rooms on this floor.
So that goes for lectures, labs, everything you'll always be able to see no matter what room you're in.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the 8th floor. All right, welcome to our 8th floor. Up here we're gonna show you guys a lecture space and a student lounge. So let's head over to the lecture space.
So in this level, you spend a lot of time on the 8th floor in your first year. We have a lot of lectures in this room as a first year student. And as you can see, it's really big. So we have 3 TVs up in the front. There's always somewhere for you to look and take notes.
And what's really nice about this space is it's wide instead of deep. So no matter where in the room you're sitting, you get that smaller classroom feel instead of a large lecture hall feel, which is helpful.
Okay, so next we're gonna head to the lounge and check that out.
And so behind us, we're gonna pass some faculty offices.
There's some faculty on this floor. There's also some faculty up on 11, which is where we're headed in a little bit.
And what's nice is they have an open door policy, so no matter what time of day, you can always pop in to see them.
So this is our second lounge. It's very nice and new, and it's very purple for Northwestern.
So if you come around here, you can see that we have a fridge and some microwaves, and there's tables where you can study or eat lunch. There's also public use computers back here that you can use whenever you have some downtime.
And as you can see, there's a smart board right there, which is really great to help when you're studying and here with friends. You can plug in your iPad and just get to work on there.
Yeah. All right, so next we're gonna head outside and we're gonna show you guys the library and the anatomy lab.
Let's go. And that is the brand new Simpson Query Research Center. It's right across the street from our library.
So this building actually houses our library and anatomy lab, but we're gonna take you guys through the library today. You can follow us.
So now we're here at the library.
We're going to take you guys in and show you the first and second floors where there's some quiet study space, as well as the group study rooms on the second floor, which work really well for talking things out, and there's whiteboards if you want to draw things.
Okay, let's go in.
So in our library, we also have a few treadmill desks where you can work on studying and get some stress relief at the same time.
And now we wanted to show you some of our partner hospitals that are in the neighborhood. Here we have Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago, Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, and Northwestern Memorial Hospital.
Okay, so our last stop on the tour is the 11th floor, so you guys can follow us. So on this floor, we have several faculty offices as well as research labs.
So everyone has the opportunity to be involved in research at Northwestern through their synthesis project. There's a wide variety of synthesis projects, so some are a little less involved, but for those that are really interested in research, we have a couple really cool labs we want to show you.
All right, let's go. So as we mentioned before, our faculty have an open door policy, which is really nice if you ever have to ask a question or get help on homework. Today it's Saturday, so most of them aren't here. Let's go to the labs.
Okay, so as an extra bonus today, we have a couple of demos from the chair of the department, Dr. Jules DeWald, and Dr. Keith Gordon. Let's go check them out.
Hi, my name is Jules DeWald. I'm the chair of the Department of Physical Therapy and Human Movement Sciences. We are the oldest physical therapy educational program in the United States, and we have some really interesting research that we do that will have a direct impact on your clinical decision making. And one of the areas that we work on a lot is try to create virtual environments for people to learn to move in. For instance, folks who have had a stroke, kids with cerebral palsy may have a harder time to move their arm or even their leg, and we are using really cool robotic technology to teach them how to move again. And these robots are not the type that you'll see in Detroit that put the wheels on your car over and over again. We call them position controlled robots, but these are robots that can sense that you're interacting with them, and they sense the force that you put on them. And I'll have an example here to my right of a robotic device that can move in multiple directions, in 3 directions, 3-dimensional as a matter of fact. And if I touch that robot, you'll see that it will get out of my way. It will keep the force really, really small. I can put my arm on it and move anywhere in space, and the robot follows me along for the ride. okay, to the point that I barely feel that I'm attached to anything. What it can also do is it can create a virtual environment. So it can actually create a virtual table. Like for instance right now, I'm moving on a virtual table that is frictionless. It's almost like you moving your arm over a piece of ice. Okay, so there's really no resistance when you move, like what would happen if you move your arm over an actual table. So I can create this virtual environment with this. Or I can support the weight of a limb completely, so that your arm is floating in space as you're moving around. Now this is really important for people with brain injuries due to a stroke or due to cerebral palsy. What they tend to have is if they lift up the arm, they don't just drive their shoulder muscles, they also drive elbow, wrist and finger flexors, and they end up in this flexion pattern. You may have seen it when a stroke subject crosses the road, and particularly if they try to run and be fast, the arm tends to curl up all the way like this. And it particularly happens when they drive their shoulder muscle. So what we can do with this really cool robotic device is we can make your arm lightweight, like you're in space. And now you'll be able to reach, even though you've had a stroke, you'll be able to reach about as well as you and I. Plus we can then make the arm progressively heavier and see what happens to your ability to reach, as well as your ability to open the hand. So here at the tip we have a whole sensing device that can basically measure your grasping forces, because it has little pressure sensors built in. And we have also a device that can measure the opening of your hand. So basically, this is a really cool way to A, understand the deficits, and B, to also come up with new interventions where we make a limb progressively heavier as a person learns to reach and open their hand again. So I'm going to introduce you now to one of our, well actually our most senior graded student right now. Her name is Nayo Hill, and Nayo did her doctoral degree in physical therapy in the program that you may be interested in.
Hi, I'm Nayo Hill. I'm in the DPT PhD program here at Northwestern, and I'm doing my research in pediatric hemiplegia. I have some really neat robotic devices that I'm going to show you and give you a sense of what we do here in the lab. So I'll show you first this robotic device that Dr. DeWald already introduced to you. I will strap my arm in here, and what I can do with this is raise my arm up and down. It can feel weightless. I can move on a frictionless surface here, and this just gives us the opportunity to very specifically measure and characterize an individual's ability to reach and an individual's ability to grasp after they've had some sort of neurological impairment. Another thing that I'm focusing on here is with this motion capture system. And so with this system, if you see on the screen here, I'm able to very specifically measure individual finger movement. And individual finger movement is something that is really challenging for individuals who've had some sort of brain injury. And so we're really interested in being able to specifically characterize those movement problems so that we can understand the neuroscience behind the impairment, so that we can better help individuals after they've had some sort of stroke. So this is really neat technology that I've been able to use during my training here. I'm in the dual degree program that we have with a biomedical engineering PhD as well as the doctorate of physical therapy. And it's been a really neat combination of these two skill sets so that I can understand the body and then apply that to the development of new technologies that will help us with the rehabilitation process of individuals after impairment.
Now we're at Dr. DeWald's Motor Control and Robotics Laboratory.
Let's check it out.
This robot is the next step up. This is like the Rolls-Royce of the robots, if you will. It has its own shoulder right here, its own upper arm, elbow, forearm, so to speak, and there's again a tip of this robot. And the tip has this little hockey puck that can measure forces as you interact with this and as you put your arm in it, as we'll show you in a bit. So if you put your arm into this, you can move around as well. The advantage of this robot is it has a much larger workspace. So you can move pretty much anywhere you want. The robot will follow you. It can go up and down by about 40 centimeters, and it has a large reaching range. Even for a tall guy like me, 6'3", I can move pretty much anywhere, and it can follow me along for the ride. Another advantage of this device is that not only can it create these virtual environments that we talked about before, but it can even perturb you while you're moving. So let's say that you move from close to your chest to take an object, let's say a glass of beer or wine. That's always a good motivator. And you try to get to it, and before you get it, somebody hits your arm. And you get what we call a stretch reflex, which is something that a physician normally tests with hitting your tendon with a reflex hammer. This robot can actually do this while you move. And one of my PhD students will talk to you in a moment about how this would work. So you can actually move to a target, get perturbed, and look at the reflexes that occur while you move, which has really not been done before. So it's a pretty cool new way of looking at reflexes, not only while you're relaxing and using a reflex hammer, but now for the first time while you move as well. So this is a huge robot, as you can see, and there's a lot of stuff behind it. It's a great research tool. This is not for the clinic. This is really to do research. So in a bit we'll talk about the next stage of robotics, where we'll make things much simpler so we can bring it to the bedside and we can bring this in people's homes. So one of my PhD students, Thomas, will introduce himself in a moment and will show you a bit more about what this device can do.
Hi, I'm Thomas Placier. I'm a PhD student in the lab working with Jules de Walt on research of reflexes. So my primary area of study is stroke. Stroke is a neurological condition that causes a host of movement issues, one of which is spasticity. Spasticity is a condition where reflexes are hypersensitive. So even the smallest tap to your arm can cause your arm to jerk in unexpected ways. This device is a new method for us to study these reflexes even while people are moving. So far, spasticity is primarily studied by having people hold their arm still and either moving the arm physically or tapping a muscle with, for example, a reflex hammer. With this device, a powerful new research device that we've developed in the lab, we can actually measure these movements while people are, for example, performing everyday tasks. So, for example, the person holds their arm over here, tries to extend towards a target, for example, a cup of coffee, and while the person is moving, the device rapidly extends the arm, much faster than I'm showing right now, and much faster than any physician will be able to stretch their arm. Well, by measuring forces at the endpoint and generating this virtual force environment, we can modulate how people control these reflexes, and we can study how the nervous system works, both in people with stroke and in healthy controls. So, for example, we can even make the arm heavier or lighter by adding vertical force support, having people move and either stretch or flex the arm at speeds of up to 360 degrees per second, which is very, very fast. So by studying these reflexes, we'll hopefully be able to understand the nervous system better.
We showed you some other robots first that were more complex and that can actually create virtual environments in which you can move, making your arm lightweight and progressively heavier to see what that does to your ability to reach and open your hand. So these are great measurement devices, but they tend to be expensive. So we have been learning a lot working with these devices and then came up with a much simpler version of it, which I'm attached to right now. So right here towards my side here, you have basically a shoulder, elbow of a different device, and you can see those tubes are really lightweight. They're made with carbon fiber, like your bike frame. So it's ultra lightweight. I can move my arm around, barely feel this device, but like the other robots, it can make my arm lightweight or heavier. It also allows us to then make measurements of reaching and hand opening, like we talked about before, at the bedside, in small clinics, and to introduce this to people at home. So we can measure their reaching ability, their hand opening ability, as well as we can use this as a therapeutic tool. So we can make the arm progressively heavier while folks reach and try to open their hand. So one of the things that we are doing, for instance, is not just do boring reaching and hand opening, but make it like a fun game. So one of the ways to do therapy is, for instance, to try to throw a frisbee to the Sears Tower in Chicago. So you get this beautiful view of the city, you see the Sears Tower, you have a frisbee type device as opposed to this bar you hold in your hand, and you tend to reach out, open the hand to let the frisbee go. In the beginning, we'll make the frisbee lightweight and you make your arm lightweight, like you're moving in space. But as you get better, we'll make your arm heavier as well as the frisbee heavier so that it becomes harder to lift the frisbee up, reach out and open the hand. And so that's a really cool way to have a progression in your ability to reach and open the hand while doing this with a video game and a much simpler device than the ones we showed you before. This is a fraction of the cost of the devices that we showed you before, and this is something that allows us to translate what we do in the lab to what you will be using in the clinic as future doctors in physical therapy. Translation to the clinic and translation to home is where we're going, and you'll be the ones that will help us bring this out into the real world.
Okay, now we're gonna go see a version that's almost ready for home use.
Yeah, let's check it out.
So this is the device I just showed you, and I sat on a chair, showed you a little bit how it worked. Here you see it, the whole thing assembled with a special seat that you can sit at, even at home, with belts, so you're nicely fastening yourself, and you can do this with one hand. If you have a stroke side, like your right arm is affected, you can do this with your left arm. Here's the device, again, that can basically create a force up or a force down. So if it creates a force up, it makes your arm lighter, to the point that it's floating in space while you're reaching and opening your hand. It can also create a force down to make your arm heavier than it normally is, which is what you and I do when we move objects into our workspace, like taking a glass out of the cupboard and putting it somewhere else. These are the type of behaviors that you do during your activities of daily living. This can be completely simulated with this much simpler device. And again, the tubes are made of carbon fiber, so it's very lightweight, easy to move around. And you can see if I lift this up, it comes back up because I created a situation such that there is a slight upward force, which I didn't show you before, but I can show you that right now. And I can make this upward force such that it fully compensates for the weight of your arm while you're reaching, which is what you want to do right after a person has had a stroke. And then over time, you can make their arm heavier as they learn to reach and open their hand with more and more of the weight of their arm. So here's the whole setup. You can even bring this whole column up and down depending on the height of the individual. And the chair can go up and down as well. So this small little unit you can place in people's home. You can put it at the bedside in the hospital, and you can put it in much smaller clinics than the bigger robots that we showed you earlier.
Our last stop on the tour is Dr. Keith Gordon's Human Agility Laboratory.
This is a lab where they study balance and gait.
Come on in.
Okay, welcome. We're in the Human Agility Lab. We've got Tara here. She's walking on a device that we've developed called the Agility Trainer. The Agility Trainer is a cable robot. We've got cables attached to Tara's waist. Those cables are used to apply small forces to Tara as she walks. We use this device for two purposes. We can apply forces in a way that allow us to assess stability and the mechanisms people use to walk. We also use this device in research. We're trying to develop new methods to improve balance during walking. We're using this device to apply forces as people walk to actually improve walking.
Okay, so I hope that the tour of our facilities was interesting to you. I'm sure you found out that we have phenomenal teaching space. On the 7th floor of the building we were at, we can make large spaces into smaller spaces, as you have seen, so that you still have the ratio of 1 to 10 students as you would have in smaller schools. Also, we have the latest in technologies for teaching. Everybody will use iPads in our program. All of the information that you'll be taught will always be with you if you go to the clinic. Furthermore, you'll get exposed to the latest in science that will underpin your clinical decision making, so that the decisions you'll make will be based on scientific evidence and will help you come up with the best treatments for your clients. So all in all, I hope this gave you a nice overview of both our educational and research opportunities here at Northwestern, again, the oldest continuously accredited physical therapy program in the United States.